Buenas, buenas. The legislature in Guam is hereby called back into session. We're in the Committee of the Whole. We're hereby called to order. Materials for the Committee of the Whole are in the shared session Google Drive folder labeled Committee of the Whole. Bill number 368-37. Proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerks via email, sessiondrive@guamlegislature.org. Amendments not in writing will be called out of order. Rules of engagement, colleagues, we'll do 3 rounds for discussion. We'll have 2 rounds of questions for the panel, with each senator allotted 10 minutes for questions, not including responses. Time to speak may not be yielded from more than one member to another. A member who yields that member's time on a question yields all that member's time on that question and may not later speak, even if all the time yielded was not used. After the completion of the 2 rounds of questions, panelists will be excused. The 3rd round, colleagues, is for amendments or comments or to speak on the bill. Questions shall be confined to the substance or nature of Bill number 368. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individuals testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will be called out of order and may result in removal from the hall. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted and removed from the room. After we complete discussion of the bill, I'll allow the main sponsor to close, and I will entertain a motion for the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, followed by a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, at which time I will report out the bill as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Sidus Masi, colleagues, and at this time I'd like to ask our Sergeant-at-Arms to swear in the panel present. Sidus Masi, Sarge, and Undokaluna Sidus Masi to the Director of DOC and his team who is here to answer our questions on the bill. And with that being said, I would like to offer the opportunity to the bill's author to open our first round. Senator San Nicolas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, panel. Mr. Director, and you all, thank you for showing up here. Mr. Director, you understand what combat life support is? It's something quick, you know, as soldiers do for another soldier while we wait for the platoon medic. It was a very interesting discussion here this morning, and for good reason. Good reason. We have a amount of money appropriated for, you know, for a new facility, and but we also understand the urgency of much needed action today. And so we came up with a compromise instead of giving you the whole 5. And thanks to, you know, Senator Tello, I really appreciate what she's done here this morning. We compromised to $1 million. To hold you over, you know, it's a combat life support, right? So, but we also wanted to bring you in here to understand the urgency. I already feel it. I know that you guys need this money, and to be expended however is necessary for you to complete your mission. But you know, we want you to explain to us. You know, how this money will be spent, and how expedient it must be spent in order to complete this mission. And so with that, sir, could you go ahead and explain what would you use this money for?
Thank you, Senator Dwayne San Nicolas. I'm Fred Berdalio, Jr., Department of Corrections Director. And thank you for sponsoring this bill. I also have with me Roma Okada, who's the Administrative Service Officer for the Department of Corrections. And I also have Major Helen Lizama, who's also the Operations Division for the Security Operations of Department of Corrections with me today, and ready to answer some of the questions that the lawmakers may have here today. And it's very important, information, for your decision-making on this bill, because when we look at, again, as was mentioned, $5 million was appropriated for the brand-new construction on the Modernization Act for the new prison. What has happened, since I came on board is we have an antiquated, and I always emphasize that every time I came here to the legislature, we have facilities that are antiquated and are in need of fixing and repairs. And I always remember Senator Joseph Agustin, who's Ways and Means, said, well, just use the $1 million that you have there in the, the account for the new prison and use that. But it was restricted. And every single time I would have a meeting with the governor on the situation, the challenges that we have, one of the big hurdles on the new prison is that we got a price of $16,483,598 for the architecture design, and we don't have that in the account. That was a stumbling block there, and the discussions with the governor and the financial team, they said, of course, one of the questions, what are your most urgent needs? And it's been known and it's been made public of things that have happened over at the Department of Corrections with our short staff. We're even we have a critical shortage of manpower. That's where a lot of our personal cost is for our FY25 budget. Although our allotment has at $45 million, $33 million of that goes toward not only the personnel for our Department of Corrections personnel employees, critical staff, but it also goes to inmates' needs, medical bills, which can amount already that's just one client, $2 million worth of dialysis. And then the other goes toward, on that $45 million contractual, right? And that, with a high increase of the population, the vendors is payments for the food, everything starts to increase in costs. And then, of course, the other area, of course, is the maintenance, right? And although we had, for our capital outlay, we have 150,000. We encumbered some of that toward some of the air conditionings, the women's facility, because even when the governor took a tour, even the Attorney General recently took a tour, and I think Senator Barnett took a tour, the women's facility are in need of some of these fixes, immediate fixes. Some of that is encumbered there, and even with a balance of 126,000, we still need more than that with what's going on and I've said this again, the domes. So what we intend to do with the monies that you lawmakers decide to provide us with this that was originally earmarked is, and I can make a copy of this, our plan is to look at the most essential thing that is necessary. With the load shedding that has been going on, we need to ensure the generators are repaired or fixed, or for that, if it's damaged completely, we need a replacement of the generators, because when the power goes out, and I hear it from Major Lazaman, the warden, everything is dark, and that creates a very high risk and vulnerability at the prison. We're intending to also concentrate on the domes. I have photos of the domes where there's no security barriers inside those domes, and someone can get hurt, and there's an average of something up to 80 inmates in that dome. Well, we're intending to do a scope of work to have this all compiled, not only the generators, the air conditioning systems in those domes, the plumbing outside, and security systems, cameras, because even when the feds come over and they took a look, part of what they're looking at too is what are we doing to reduce the vulnerability of violence that could happen in there where we're blinded, and then when the investigators, both fed or local, need what was on the film, the cameras are defective in those systems. So this is what is going to go into what is described in here as security systems within the bill that you allow us for. I know there was indication here of vehicles too. We are heavy when it comes down to transport of vehicles back and forth between Manila and the courts. Some of those vehicles break down. We have had vehicles come to our prison and they're throwing contraband over, and then they take off. We need a chase vehicle to be at the ready there, and this is related to law enforcement assets is really needed, and we don't have that sort of like capability right now to have a a chase vehicle for that, because again, we're short on our financial needs when it comes to our capital outlay. We were really limited in our budget. We're competing, and I'm sure the lawmakers know here with the other public safety agencies. The Guam Police Department has always been a priority first before the Department of Corrections. That's just, I've been a chief of police for the Guam Police Department. I get it, I understand it, but they get the chunk of the public safety budget, right? And then the other, of course, we have to share with other public safety agencies. And sometimes, it's been said before, out of sight, out of mind, but I'm happy that we have the attention today, Senator, because this is a critical issue that I hope lawmakers here as leaders understand the urgency of the needs that we need to do. And again, as I said, you look at the priority list, this is what is sort of like in a summary of what we intend to use this monies for. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Colleagues, could we just take a short recess to give the clerks an opportunity to make copies of Director Berdallo's list so that you guys can be apprised of all the information before you ask questions? So we'll just take a short recess. Cedars Mossy colleagues, I also want to thank our clerks for handing out, you should have 4 separate documents, courtesy Director Berdallo. Cedars Mossy Director. Senator San Nicolas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions for now. We'll just go ahead and have the rest of the colleagues. Thank you, sir.
Cedars Mossy, Senator San Nicolas. Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Director Berdallo and Ms. Okada, right? And of course, Helen Lozama. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming at a very short notice on this very important legislation that would, of course, you're here to justify the certain amounts that it is needed. And of course, just the extensive list that you gave me prior to this, I did send it out on WhatsApp to all my colleagues for them to be able to look at. So they've had an opportunity to look at some of the things that are required. But I'd like to go through these documents that you just provided us. Okay, so if we can start off with first, let's start off with the Department of Corrections Security Project 2024 for the dome tents. Can you explain what this document that we have in front of us, what this is all about? And what are we looking at here?
Thank you, Senator Tadegui. You're looking at the dome tents, and I provided a map, so that's way up there, a little bit between post 16 and post 24. There are 4 white dome tents. Those were built by, from what I was informed, by federal customs and immigration long time ago, right? And so this dome project here, this is the area we've been seeing on the trends of escapes taking place, right? These are pretrial detainees that are held, these 4 domes. Thanks to the warden, they moved out a whole bunch of adjudicated prisoners who were within that dome that was occupying one of those, and they moved them to post 18 and renovated post 18. So this dome project, what it calls for, there's a lot of work that's going to be needed with this. The first thing, of course, one of those 3 dome tents, the aircon works, and it's okay. The other 2, the temperature in there could reach up to 150 degrees. I mean, it is very, very hot, even the officers that are working there. One of the things that that we have planned is hopefully with GPA are going to do electrical assessment, because that's the first step that's going to be done to look at that electrical thing, you know, especially if they fix the aircon, and also that dome has to have like a generator, and should power go out, we want to make sure that, you know, the capability. So GPA, I sent the letter off for them requesting for them to come and do an assessment there. Now in those domes too, in that same general area, they don't have toilets in those domes, so they have to go outside for there's some like a tin structure, you know, and what they have there is where the inmates, they have to be monitored. They go out for their showers and using the restroom. Okay, they go, the inmates there that are in those tents go out to, and they're monitored to go use the restroom or showers. Those plumbings and things are dilapidated too and antiquated. So part of this maintenance and this repairs that are going to be done, especially with the dome being a priority there, is going to ensure that we have the air conditioning done, those water piping and everything done, but most important, you see those barriers, those fence lines, there's nothing in the interior of those domes right now. So one of those officers that are assigned to that dome is facing sometimes up to 80 some inmates who are looking at that officer. And I've never been in that. When I used to work in corrections, I've been locked into a dome where it's secured and there's no way out and it could be as much as only 50. But this is way over since the overcrowding with pretrial detainees. This is way over the max, and it's a security situation, and we don't put barriers there to control movement inside that dome.
Mr. Director, other than all the repairs that need to be done, of course, the facilities, the restroom facilities, et cetera, how much does it cost to, I mean, it's overcrowded, but if you were given the opportunity to have one more dome put in place to cover some of that, that population, that overcrowdedness, and we can see it in these pictures that they're sleeping on the floor.
Yep.
It's pretty bad, and you see somebody's head, a couple of heads up against a fence. How much would it cost to put one more dome up?
I don't have that figure right now. Part of this process is going to do a scope of work, so we'll be able to see what are the cost estimates on that. But one thing I want to say about these domes again is that one of the incidents of an escape is an individual use a razor and cut through the tent. That's how easy it is to damage the dome. Now, and I discussed this when the AG, the Attorney General, paid a visit to, because he has some of those reports. And one of the biggest concerns, of course, and Major Lezama knows this, is every time we would go into a Core 3 situation of a typhoon coming through or a storm, the wardens, especially if it's going to be heavy winds that can damage and take out those dome tents, they have to move the pretrial detainees into the main facility where the visitor area is at. If you look inside the map, it's going to be right where the chapel is located, and it's that main facility there, and the classrooms. They move all those pretrial detainees in there, and this is because we don't know if one of those domes might collapse and fall down, and it'll be a safety issue for the inmates. And actually, on Mawar, we actually had one dome tent located in almost by Zone 9 Bravo, next to Post 16 on that map. That thing collapsed during Mawar. So that's a very dangerous kind of situation. We don't want to put the inmates in that kind of situation at risk. The most optimal thing, Senator, is having something that is, concrete and facility, something that could be more permanent.
Of course,
location.
These little fixes here and there, are not very safe. So I do understand that. But, my concern too, many of these inmates are from the federal side, correct? That stay in these domes? Are the federal detainees here or no, just the local?
The federal detainees are down at the Hagana detention facility in Agana. The only time that the federal detainee may ever come up into the Manilao area is if all of a sudden some sort of emergency situation of maybe the life of that federal detainee being threatened, and that's where we also coordinate with the federal officials and let them know that.
Thank you. And the next letter is the next one that we have is from Major Lezama to the Attorney General. Can you please explain this letter and what was this about in a nutshell? I know it's quite long, but if you can just in a nutshell explain what this letter is all about.
Yes, my name is Major Lezama from DOC. I'm the Ops Commander. So we had a visit from Attorney General Douglas Muellen. We were requesting our director was requesting for the release of nonviolent crime defendants due to our population is increasing. And also because of the current conditions of our facilities, being that not only is the structure still needs to be repaired because of Typhoon Mawar's damages, it hasn't been repaired at all. Not yet. It's just a Band-Aid. So that's another reason. That's one. The generators don't work. The AC unit doesn't work. And also the shortage of manpower. So, the director was asking for nonviolent crime defendants and to be released, and the Attorney General, Douglas Moreland, said no. Okay, and the reason is he wants solutions such as to build an 800-bed facility made out of butler tents in the middle of the Dow Correctional Facility. That is a short-term goal that he's looking at.
Sorry, Major, did you get a response, by the way, from your letter to the Attorney General? Did you get a response from him?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure if he did tore it, but
okay, thank you.
I don't know.
Go ahead and continue. Sorry to interrupt.
So I was asking if it's possible if they could release such as misdemeanors, including those possession of controlled substance, petty theft, vandalism, perjury, DUI, DWI, traffic warrants, all of that, or making false reports. However, he said no. And the reason is because they're all tied in with the drug problem we have here in Guam, which is a total of 8 were killed this year due to meth. Last year alone, the statistic was 42 died because of meth. But this year, the highlights was the one that got killed, the Korean, and the other one was the Valentine's murder. Those were all meth related. So that's why it's very strict with releasing anyone. Okay, so yes, like I said, we can house them. However, the problem is our facility has not been repaired yet, and we're still waiting for fundings. The last time I submitted all the typhoon damage assessment report to FEMA, the approximate amount was $2 million. However, it's reduced to, I believe, $1.5 million, some of the projects. So currently, we don't have generators that are working, such as, if you look further in the back, post 8, post 16, no generators for the domes, which is post 25 alpha, post 25, post 29, and post 29 alpha. Post 30, which is the federal detention centers, are all inoperable. Majority of the AC units are inoperable, such as post 2, post 4, post 5, post 6, post 7, post 8, post 16, post 17, post 18, post 24, the domes, which is the 3 domes that are not working, 25 alpha, post 25, and post 29. Those are currently being occupied. Post 29 alpha also does not have an AC unit. Post 30 and post 30 alpha also has AC units that needs to be repaired or replaced. The problem with the AC units does not work is that they cannot open windows in the facilities because all of the windows are sealed and they need to have proper ventilation and the cooling system has to work. You cannot leave the doors or windows open, even if you can, because the mosquitoes, frogs, snakes, insects enter the facilities, which is another added complaint. You cannot open the doors without monitoring it because they could escape. All of these problems lead to the violation of their civil rights, which falls under the 8th Amendment of cruel and unusual punishment. All of these deficiencies have been reported and addressed, and we are waiting for the funds to make repairs and replacement of all generators, AC units, plumbing, electrical, equipment, and supplies. All of these needs to be expedited immediately, and everything has to be done to ensure the health, safety, security, and orderly running of the facilities. Government Supply Agency, the GSA, also needs to ensure that the Department of Correction has adequate supply on a weekly basis of toilet tissue, personal hygiene, laundry soap, cleaning materials to maintain health, sanitation, safety, and security. Everyone has to remember we are a public safety agency and not a hotel with tenants. We have those sentenced to serve their time in jail, those who are pretrial detainees who have not been found guilty or not guilty. We have behavioral clients at the male units and the female units. These 933 prisoners, right now are in our custody, and we have to care for them according to the law, carry out our mission, which is care, custody, control, and rehabilitation of law offenders. At the same time, enforcing the law, serving the public, providing public safety, ensuring that we keep our officers and staff safe behind these walls. Now, today, we have one officer that just resigned. We only have 169 correction officers, 7 CCRP, which is the Correction Reserve Program, 11 recruits, 1 LTA, 1 LTD, 1 TDY to Homeland, 10 parole officers, and 17 civilian employees. So we lost a total of 4 officers from November last month to December. they're leaving off island or another law enforcement agency. By reducing the prison population, you would decrease the costs for housing, supplies, utilities, meals, medical, dental, and also decrease the incidents. It would be a safe place for everyone. So if you have an overcrowded prison, the problem here with the overcrowded prison is that there's a possibility that the prisoners could get assaulted or raped, and that is the truth. I'm telling you right now, it may not be reported. Some have been reported, and they have been, the reports have been submitted to GPD, and then it was also taken to court. That is my concern here, is their safety. With one officer watching 80 prisoners, and they don't know if the prisoner is being beaten up because it's only one of him. So we need the manpower to watch 950. It reached 950. But we only have 169 officers, and when you subtract the SORT team, the K-9, the support section, the Hagåtña, and you subtract the other sections, you're only gonna have 95 officers. And that's not for the shift. That's divided into 2 platoons for the adult correctional facility. And then on that number, the 95, you have those with special schedule, medical profile, or they call out sick, or they're AWOL, or they're military deployment or military leave. So that brings us down to only 20-some on duty to watch the 700 in Mingilao. How do you even imagine to watch 700 prisoners with just 20 officers, 25 officers? It's happening now, and I'm grateful for Senator San Nicolas for introducing this bill, requesting for the $5 million for repairs. Because if the generator's working and the AC units are working, it reduces the tension of the prisoners, okay? And the staff is a little bit, with the air cons working, they're at least they're a little bit comfortable with working.
It's tolerable.
Because it's cooler.
Yeah.
But if you have a very hot environment and you're all alone, watching those prisoners, of course you're gonna get stressed out and you're not gonna feel good. Right. So that's what's happening right now. Okay, and these are my recommendation, okay, because on this bill it says $5 million for the construction of a new facility. Yes, this is possible. Probably this is the amount. I don't have the amount, but
Thank you.
If AG Douglas Moreland is supporting a short-term goal of tents, Butler tents, this may also help,
Yep.
to solve the current population, because he does not want to have them released. Even though he sees the current condition at the women's facility and the male's facility, he does not support releasing anybody. And so my recommendation is to expedite the funding for generators, AC units, plumbing, electrical equipment, etc. Immediately repair or replace all needed for all 16 units in the adult correctional facilities and the Hagåtña detention. Without the generators, whoever we're working whenever there's a power outage, which is happening right now, the buildings are pitch black and we cannot see anything, which causes our facilities to be in a very high danger level. Number 2, release those who are non-U.S. citizens who have committed crimes and have them deported to their country. AG Moreland supports this. Guam is too small for people coming here to Guam and hurting the community and the people. Committing a crime in our island is not tolerated by the community. Excuse me. The community who are law-abiding citizens. Taxpayers are paying for the food, utilities, supplies, buildings, materials, and for the correction officers and staff salary while they are in prison. Number 3, book and release all who committed misdemeanors or have them referred to conduct community projects. Number 4, release pretrial detainees with misdemeanor crimes on electronic monitoring device or third-party release or house arrests. Okay, this will reduce the overcrowding incidents in the prison for both males and females. Release those, number 5, release those with drug possession to attend drug and alcohol programs weekly or monthly while outside, attending counseling at Guam Behavioral, get treatment at Guam Behavioral, and conduct community service, assist them to get a job or attend training or college. According to the AG, Guam Behavioral is overwhelmed, and I object to that report of being overwhelmed. Why? Because we as well is overwhelmed with 950 prisoners. Okay, they have a lot of staff to help with all these treatment and whatever counseling. Number 6, active search of all incoming shipment to the port and all ports in Guam to prevent more illegal control substance. Yes, I agree with this. To decrease the deaths caused by meth users and fentanyl users. That is correct. I totally support this. Number 7, identify all those arrested for drugs and locations to identify the possible source of drugs, to have them arrested and prosecuted, to include their finance reports or tax reports. Work with federal officials to see what could be done to detect, deter, decrease, and end drug activities. Number 8, continuous hiring and expedite recruitment for the DOC to monitor and watch prisoners who were arrested and are pretrial detainees, to also monitor all those sentenced to serve at the Department of Corrections. Number 9, pretrial detainees have not been found guilty or not guilty. They are waiting for a court hearing or trial. Number 10, the medical and dental costs for pretrial detainees are being paid by taxpayers, which is costly. Recommend that upon release that they work and they pay back their own medical and dental costs to the general fund or the Department of Corrections revolving fund. And this ends my recommendation. This is why I'm grateful for Senator San Nicolas putting out this amount, okay? Because even if we don't use the whole $5 million, it could be returned back. We're not saying that this is the whole amount, but something to start with so that it can help us with this current problem. Like right now, we don't even have toilet tissue. We don't have toilet tissue last week and this week because of GSA. I don't know what's going on. And imagine one toilet tissue costs $1, right? Maybe $1 times 950. Imagine times 4 a month. That's how much it costs a month. We need that. I'm serious. We need toilet tissue. We need bath soaps for them. We need hygiene. We need laundry soap and cleaning materials to maintain a healthy and sanitation agency. You know, we need these things. It's not. We're not joking about this. We're serious about all these things that we need. And what is $1 million going to be enough? I don't think so, because buildings cost a lot. With maintenance, repair, the cost for a 5-ton unit for one of those domes is going to cost a lot of money for the AC unit. Even the generators, that's not a regular generator we're buying. Even my generator, the small one, cost me $1,200, and that's just a small generator. So imagine a 5-ton unit, you know, the AC unit or the generator. How much is it going to cost? It's going to cost a lot of money. I just don't have the money. The amount. But this amount, $5 million, is something. It's enough for the short-term goal or that AG Douglas Moylan recommended. Okay, and also, the ASO also informed me today that the washers and dryers is ongoing, so we'll be receiving that soon. So I'm asking all of your help now because I don't know what else to do, you know, I want to ensure that our supply room is full of supplies to ensure that we never run out, and for officers to use their money to purchase toilet tissue was never done in the past. I never seen this. But because the increase, this is why 01, the director, recommended for the non-violent crime defendants to be released. That's the reason. I mean, one charge was just making a false report or fraudulent use of a license plate. Traffic violation, do you really want them incarcerated? Is it really, it's really need to incarcerate those with misdemeanor crimes? No. Really, no.
Well, thank
But
you.
yes, felony crimes, yes, definitely. And those that are drugged with illegal possession, which I see every day on the daily confinement, they should be sent to a treatment facility to go and get detox and counseling, treatment and counseling, because we don't do detox for those, consuming drugs.
Thank you, Major. I think you made some good suggestions here. I mean, it's not just a matter of like complaining. You're actually coming down with ideas to assist DOC as much as possible. I too feel very uncomfortable, releasing anybody, regardless, for drug possessions and things like that. It just doesn't sit right with me, especially when there's so much money that was put in just to put that individual incarcerated for that. There might be some issues there. What we're trying to do here is to provide at least some funding. It might not, the amendment is just $1 million, and what can we do with that $1 million to really make a substantial change is what we need to. And your list of the generators and what the director has mentioned on the plumbing situation, we know that there's a leak in your facility that's drawing out so much water and costing you over 100,000 plus of water bills that need to be fixed. These fixes can totally make a difference because it adds up.
Yes, ma'am.
You got the K-9 still, situated here. It's about safety at this point, and so I
And ma'am,
don't-
that water leak situation
Yeah.
is just not a one area situation.
it's everywhere in the area. Yep.
You gotta
I've heard.
understand the buildings are 50 years old. Okay, it's very old, even before Typhoon Mawar. So imagine the damages it made, and then these leaks have been happening even before our director came. Okay.
Yeah, we need to stop
I
the
did
bleeding
call
on that.
Guam Waterworks as suggested by you guys.
Right.
And we're still waiting for the supervisor to call us back on if they're able to help us to detect the leak.
Right.
And they are aware we're a government agency. Okay, so I did call DPW. DPW said to call GWA. I'm still waiting for GWA's response
Okay.
for if they could assist us with detecting where are the water leaks. And then from there, we can also put out a request as to how much it will cost to repair the leaks. Because these are 50-year-old facilities.
Right. Understand.
It used to be a residential home, and then they converted it into a prison.
Oh. Well.
It's not the government bought it, the land and the homes, and then converted it into a prison. That's what they did.
Yep. This letter was dated December 5th to the Attorney General 2024, so it's a recent letter that was sent to him. So I'm anxious to see his reply from it. So now we're going to look at the other, you talked about Marwa, and we're going to look at the other document dated October 24th. This was after the budget bill, so October 24th, 2024, and this is regarding Typhoon Marwa's request for time extension for FEMA projects. Now, it makes a list of all the, the wish list here on what needs to be fixed. And then you come up with a total of $2,009,481.83 with regards to that. So then you said earlier it's about 1 million something, but is this number still accurate on how to, Director, is this still accurate? The 2 million is what really needs to be given to DOA?
This is the number that was given at this date,
Okay.
but there's some projects that's still being evaluated from our recovery office.
Now, in the
because-
event, Director, this funding amount that's requested from FEMA, would you be able to reimburse, let's say we give you $1 million to fix some of these really critical areas, will you be able to be reimbursed from FEMA for use?
That's what I was asking Doris, who works on
Okay.
this, our
So,
program
yeah.
coordinator with that. One of the
So,
things that,
that's
just an example, what FEMA, the kind of response FEMA gave on this is they're saying, especially with one of the projects here about a generator, they are actually air conditioner. They wanted to find out what's the maintenance record of the air conditioner. That's where we came into all of a sudden. There were no maintenance records of an aircon, of maintaining the aircon. And then that's the pushback from FEMA to say, okay, then possibly they may not even, in this listing, may not award us that project. So that's why at this date, when this was written, there might be possible changes there.
Okay, so I'd like to see, it's nice to have an update on this one too, but that being said, just knowing that we can get some reimbursement back if this money was used and put back to where, we were hoping for is to have a new prison that's desperately needed. So that's this page that we talked about earlier for Joseph Cabana, Director of Guam Recovery Office, and we have these lists of what needs to be repaired. Just alone on the women's facility, it's like $52,000. That's quite a bit. And we all know the cost of construction as well as food and everything else on this island. Power, water has gone up substantially in the last year, so we expect it to be a little bit higher. Now, the last page, the one that I was able to send to my colleagues earlier, it has these priorities. Can you kind of explain to us what this last page, this is the fourth one, where it says Department of Correction Housing Units, it starts off there. Can you explain what this one's about?
Okay, which page was that, the last page?
It's the one that we received that starts off Department of Correction Housing Units, and that goes further down into Typhoon Marwa. You turn the page, you have Priority 1, Procurement Installment of Generators. You have
Yes.
Priority 2. Can you explain this one?
Okay, yes. Of course, the first part is just showing the capacity of the housing units. In a perfect world, this would be the capacity. It doesn't indicate, of course, how much are currently in these housing units, but it's overpopulated, especially when it comes down to the area of the domes. Even though they may be a 50-bed capacity, we're up to 80 per each dome. So it's really way overcrowded. And then, of course, as you go down on that page, one Typhoon Mawar included, so that at least the reader has an idea that there were some certain damages, and possibly from those damages, if FEMA does award us the monies on the reimbursement for whatever, because sometimes there's a matching that they're going to give us. That's what the Recovery Office tells us. Those were just some of the areas under the heading Typhoon Mawar that was presented to us. And then, of course, the main priority, as we put, and that's why I sent off a letter to Guam Power Authority to do electrical, do an assessment of our infrastructure for both, not only just Mangilaw, but the detention center over in Agana. Because even where there was a photo, I should have brought it, but in Agana detention facility, the electrical room, the room where the electrical box is at, on the other side of it is the inmate shower room, so I don't know how they designed it, but the feds, that was actually built by the feds, and it was prefab, and it is just something can easily happen, you know, with where the electrical room is at. So the biggest thing is we need, especially if power goes out, we need backup for our communication systems, our surveillance security systems, the power for to keep things going on in terms of, and that's why the generators, installation of generators in these areas is made as priority one, and then of course the justification. The priority two is because of our population going up to 950, and it's related again, electrical, washers, dryers. Right now, inmates are washing their clothes, hand washing, and but we have using ARPA funds. We have on order some of those washing machines and dryers that are there. It's an ongoing thing. The biggest challenge of that, of course, if it's a heavy-duty type of commercial type of washer, dryer that's needed, and some of that input has been given to me by my staff. The other third priority, but the most, I call it the significant one, is the dome project, where it comes down to they gave me the square footage, 100 by 55,000 square feet in each of those domes. And what we're looking at, again, as I said, is it's an open bay with 80 pretrial inmates there that can move around. And that's where some of the escapes have taken place. That's where some assaults, some violent incidents have been taking place. Every single time there's an incident of contraband or an escape or violence, and it's mostly around that location, the dome or down in the Ganya detention, where the pretrial population, everything goes into a lockdown. It's unfair, but the sentenced prisoners, their rehabilitation programs comes to a halt when we're in that security status. So, again, as Major Lezama highlighted, on the pretrial reduction proposal that I had a conversation with the AG, although Major did say no, he did accept from me a list of about 135 pretrial inmates that have been reviewed by our case social work division. He just committed that he'll review those cases. And that's at the most what happened, which to me is a little bit of sunlight, down the tunnel, is that he committed to review those cases. The ultimate thing, Senator, of course, is the judiciary, because they're the ones who, make that ultimate decision on the release, too. But on that dome project, pretrial detainees, there was a question one time when we were going through the domes and post 8, the AG asked me, what would be wrong with having pretrial in the same vicinity as sentenced adjudicated prisoners, right? That are convicted, that are post 16 on that map. If you look in the map, you see post 16, post 18, those are sentenced prisoners, and post 7, post 6 are the most highly, post 7 is behavioral, post 6 and 5 are your most dangerous ones. I told the AG, there is a concern I have when you have pretrial in the same property as sentenced prisoners. In other jurisdictions in the states, pretrial are in jails or in detention facilities. They're not in prisons. In the military, your pretrial are in a correction facility in California, Camp Pendleton, or Okinawa, or Quantico. It's when they're sentenced and finish their court-martial that go to Kansas, where the big penitentiary is. In the states, same thing too. They're in the jail or correctional facility detention, but when they're sentenced, they go to the state prison. So there should be that separate and segregation. There should be plans, some of this could be long range, to get those pretrial detainees away from Manila. And if you ask me on my opinion, and I think I said it here before, I would have them right within 5-minute walking distance to the court, so that when those judges look outside the window, they know, the judiciary look out, they know the detention facility is right there. And it's taxing on our transportation. So that's why included in the bill for Senator Dwayne is looking at these type of vehicle situations until we deal with that transport thing. And, it's 80, I think something 60 in the morning, and in the afternoons, 60 pretrial inmates being brought back and forth between Manila and then to Cludaganya to the courts. That is wear and tear on our vehicles, and it's a security vulnerability when you have them leaving Manilao and on the roads by Chalampago. I don't know how the people in Chalampago and Ordet feel when inmates are going back and forth between there to Agana, but it's a security risk. The women's facility, that facility used to be the Rosaro Detention Facility, Senator. In this area here on page 3 of the women's facility, they have their own issues too. The governor walked through there. The AG walked through there. Senator Barnett, I believe, had a chance to go to post 8, and seeing in that location, majority of them are pretrial detainees. About 50 plus of them are pretrial. The others are sentenced. And it's not good to have sentence again in the same facility. We want them to be separate. With that, they have their own issues there in that facility because it's old. I mean, I worked there when I was a young police officer. As a police officer, we used to be assigned at least 6 months working there. And one of the female inmates actually managed to escape. There was an incident where she kicked out a fence area there in the holding area because it's not really constructed in a way, and that's a learning lesson among our officers. But a lot of things need to be fixed and straightened up and reinforced there. And then, of course, we get into the post 5 Hagana, the priority 5, the Hagana detention facility. And thanks to Captain Joy Pakaigui, he gave all this breakdown of different things that need to be done there. You know, the Hagana detention facility is really meant on the Hagana restoration plan. It's not really supposed to be there. I believe the plans were to tear the whole place down there to include with parole services and make it into the Manette F. Guerrero Administrative Building. So they have to have some plans there that where will we want that Hagana detention facility. And it's only meant for 132, but you have about 212 inmates there. And it's crowded to the point that I even showed the AG that in a cell you could have 5 individuals or 6 people in one cell. 2 of them, or maybe 1 or 2, may be there just for a simple DUI. The other 4 might be there for armed robbery or some violent, serious crime. And if someone gets hurt and it's the nonviolent one, I don't blame families to start raising their concerns about how could you get a facility like that so overcrowded like that, right? And so these are the different, I got down to the last one with the page 9, the VRS shop. That's the one that actually with Lieutenant Tayan, what he does is he looks at some of the things that he needs in terms of the closest that we could have for maintenance. And he has inmates helping out every now and then with maintenance. And the AG asked me, where is your general maintenance person for Department of Corrections? And I told the AG, if we ever put an announcement out for a general maintenance guy or even a plumber, the moment they say, okay, what am I applying for, a maintenance or plumber, where am I going to work at? In the prison, they turn down the job application. No one wants to work in a prison. They'd rather work as a maintenance person at a school or other government agency, but we're not getting any bites for individuals wanting to, when we put out a announcement for those kind of things. Priority 7, the communications. Our communication systems. On Mawar, I heard our IT&E iPhones were going, the phones were going down. We are still in discussion with Chief Steve Ignacio, the public safety radio system. We want to ensure that we want to be tied into interoperability. And we've heard that term before, and that's the #1 thing with Homeland Security, interoperability. Because should something happen at the prison or escape and we form our fugitive task force that gets together and we have the command post over here in the Ganya detention on the 2nd floor. They have we use that as a command post. We want everyone on the same page. This last escape, those are some of the issues brought up about each of these agencies have their own communications and can't be able to communicate, so there's a lot of coordination that's needed. And those are some of the stuff that they requested. Captain Joey of, again, Pakaigui on priority 8 about the age of the firearms that we have and less lethal weapons. We want to move to make it sort of interoperable with other law enforcement agencies and have the Glocks and stuff and all that. And then, of course, the last page, 11, is Major Lazama's input again. You've heard Major Lazama and her recommendations, but she, of course, one of her main things in operation security is looking at what we've been in trouble before in the past, I've heard, is the fire sprinkler system for some of these places. That's why I think the prison went into that, the 1991 settlement. We got to look at, because should something happen, a fire breakout, it is our obligation to ensure there are responses to make sure that thing is mitigated and the vulnerability and that risk to our inmates is reduced. And not only our inmates, our staff that work inside that facility. And she highlighted a lot of stuff here. Some of that gets into cameras, CCTV cameras and camera systems. None of these cameras and things will ever work unless our electrical system, again, the generation, the generators are working. Should something go out. We need eyes and ears on what's happening, even to the point where we may be investing in drones too as part of our situation awareness there at the facility. Thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you, Fred, for going through this document with all of us. I mean, just when we thought it was, just a matter of, generators and fixing some plumbing and issues there, and the outhouse that you were talking about, it's much more than that. So much more than that. CT cameras are so important, vital, especially when you only have a staff of 169 in, DOC correction officers, and there's 900.
Yes.
That's actually 22 at a time is what you mentioned. That's what's ironic. 22 officers in one day overseeing that many people.
Those are extra eyes,
Yeah,
the
and
CCTV cameras.
Exactly.
It helps, and it records what's going on as well.
And it keeps our correction officers safe as well.
I just want to also emphasize the rooms that especially the Hagåtña detention facility, those cells or rooms are only made for 2 prisoners with 1 commode. Okay? But if you have 4 to 7 in that cell, they can either fight, they get raped, they could even catch diseases. This is the problem with overcrowding. Okay? And also, the air in that room, the oxygen level is reduced with that small room. That's the reason why we need a bigger facility to accommodate the 950.
Well, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what we're trying to reach for, is to build a new prison. I mean, that's important. We all understand that it would take care of a lot of our issues. I know that even building up in a prison is going to help with regards to not having as many DOC officers needed, per square foot, because of the way the new building is going to be erected, which is a great idea. But right now, it's the fix we need today, so that you don't get sued again and having to pay out any issues or anybody get hurt under your care. But here's the $1 million question, though.
Like I'm just going to share this with you. The early 2000, I was assigned as a DOJ officer, okay? And I was working with the settlement, the 1991 settlement. After that happened, we took care of everything. They went ahead and they just what you call that term where they just decided to just close the case. It was a 12-year-old case, the 1991 settlement. So, we did our best, but now with all these things, I am aware of the consequences of all these things that are not being fixed, and that's the reason why I pointed out all these things with the AC unit, the generators, everything.
Thank you.
To meet their standards. Right now, DOJ is watching us right now from Washington. Those guys would just come here right away. That's for sure. But they know very well that if there's a problem, we're going to know about it. Because these guys watch Guam every day. I know that.
And that's our biggest
sure.
concern, like I mentioned earlier, too, about, receivership, and the possibility, and we were all have that possibility. But what we want to do is try and take care of what we can right now.
Yes.
This $1 million will go a long way in helping, especially on the generators, because the generators, it's twofold. It takes care of the CTV cameras, it ensures the safety, the accommodations.
The lights.
Yeah, the lights, everything that needs to be done. So that's really important.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
the question I have, the $1 million question is, how much money did DOC receive in FY24? And maybe your ASO can tell us, in FY24 for maintenance and repairs of the facility, how much did you receive in 2024 FY?
Okay, I just want to put on the record that Roma Okada wasn't the administrative service officer. She just joined us for FY25, but she did indicate that on our capital outlay for FY25, it was about $150,000 for capital outlay.
How about FY24? Does she have that those numbers?
For FY24, there was nothing. At the most, on special funds, we had our corrections revolving fund. But the thing is what happens if we can't use it? I mean, we can use some of that for capital outlay, but it mostly goes toward the medical
If I'm not
costs
mistaken,
of our
it's about
inmates.
70,000. If I'm not mistaken, that was brought
For
up
the
during
corrections revolving fund, our authorized level at the
Yeah.
time of FY24 was $1 million.
Oh, 1 million?
502,625.
There is something that we did talk about during the public hearing about for 70,000 that I wanted to bring up, because I do realize that whatever funding that you do have in capital outlay, if you don't utilize that funding, it's used for other areas. Like you mentioned earlier about one inmate, incorporating $2 million worth of dialysis. Were you able to use any of the capital outlay to cover some of the other expenses that was not foreseen?
I believe that's what happens according to Roma and Major Uggan, is that they work with BBMR to identify funds, because Lester, BBMR does say he'll cover any shortfalls and help with identifying in the accounts there what we can use to cover some of those medical debts. And not only that, we've compiled also, and it's been said publicly before, some of the obligations that happen at the Civil Service Commission among employees of the Department of Corrections.
I know, Fred, that there's been a high turnover rate of directors at DOC since I've been senator in 2019. Quite a bit of turnover. I know it's very difficult. You come in there, you're trying to figure out what happened before and what was not working. Right now, we have something concrete in front of us that needs to be done right now. And I appreciate you, all these documents that you brought in front of us today, and being able to say it for the public to understand just how much of a state our prison is today, both in Hagåtña as well as in Manilao, and how bad it is right now. I just encourage you to continue to move forward, especially with the new prison, that we need to find every possibility to get that going. But at the same time, it's about the safety for your officers there and staff, as well as the prisoners there as well. But I don't see, I don't support the fact, I hope you don't mind, Major Lizama, but if someone is put in jail, they're put in there for a reason, and
yes.
whether it's minimal or not, it's the beginning of a track record that can, that's how they start off small. I mean, if we can do, the one thing I like is deportation. I've always been a fan of that. Of course, social workers don't like that, but I think it's the place it's some place that we can actually start. I'm glad the Attorney General is doing it. But I thank you so much for my time is almost up. Appreciate the information that you brought, and the next time you come to a budget hearing, you need to give us the right numbers. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
The right numbers, regardless if they put a cap on how much money that you're always used to getting. What is it, 45 million that you were given, and they're probably telling you, no, you got to stay at 45 million, you can't ask for anything else? I make a recommendation for the next budget hearing that you ask for exactly what needs to be taken care of at DOC, because it's your neck that we're going after. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate you being here to advocate for DOC. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Tadegui. Just for your information, colleagues, because I think the amount of $1 million had been mentioned, but we have not passed any amendments to this bill. Senator Lujan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, folks, for being here this afternoon. Chief Bordallo, you know, it was discussed this morning regarding, or actually, Major Lozama had also just mentioned that the feds are taking a really close look at DOC and the situation. Based on the last receivership and the citations that, that maybe were cited that caused the receivership for DOC, and based on your self-assessment on possible citations, where are we at now in your self-assessment of DOC versus the citations that caused DOC to go into receivership? Where are we at now versus then? Are we more? Would you say that our self-assessment of possible citations is even greater now than maybe the citations back then that caused DOC to fall into federal receivership?
Well, I think what is really, I think with the federal right now with the assessment, maybe how, because federal officials they've inspected, they've come in through our area. We've had members of the military and federal marshals that constantly keep track of what's happening to their federal detainees at the Agana detention facility. And I think what they're watching is how we're dealing with the overcrowding, especially at Agana detention, our local detainee population, because their federal detention doesn't jump up dramatically, but we're occupying the same facility at Agana lockup. What makes the feds feel a little bit better with the situation at Agana lockup is we can move, and it's still not a good thing, move an overflow of those pretrial to Manila. Now, the federal detainees are safe over at Agana because we're moving the overflow of pretrial up to Manila. That makes the feds feel a little bit better, in my opinion. But because later on, those federal detainees, when they're convicted, go to an off-island federal prison. They don't have to stay and do their sentence at Manila. If they did have to do their sentence in Manila, the federal, I'm sure they're going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, but I'm sure that yeah, of course they're looking at their federal detainees, but I'm sure in the citations and violations, whether you're a federal detainee or a local detainee, that whether and you know, if your right as a prisoner or detainee is violated, it's a violation whether you're a federal detainee or a local detainee, right?
That's correct. And to include the ones who have been adjudicated in Manila, they can easily, as I said in the beginning when I first came on board, they can easily write letters to their attorneys and start up a litigation that can be very costly if it's brought to the attention of the...
and maybe one of the reasons why you're not getting that is because we have a shortage of attorneys at this point.
That's
possibly one
interesting theory there, Senator.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, yeah. But here's the thing. My concern as well is, again, when you look at in the past and what caused the federal receivership versus what we have right now. Back then, how many detainees did DOC house versus now? And I understand the AG completely in regards to not wanting to release the detainees, because you had mentioned earlier, I think Major Lozama had mentioned earlier, that a lot of these detainees, regardless of their even nonviolent defendants, that they were drug-related. They were drug-related anyway. So I can understand that they may, you know, again, he's wanting to protect the community as well. So I understand both sides of that equation. But we're trying to understand this situation, and thank you for coming down here this afternoon. Guess there's a better understanding on that situation over there, because a violation is a violation, and whether they're a federal detainee or not, a civil rights violation is a violation, right? And I'm just wondering again, a detainee versus how many detainees would you say we have? The ratio between detainee and a sentence, or offender that's been sentenced already?
Well, we have about 300 and probably 20 adjudicated prisoners right now that are housed.
320?
Yeah, 300, about.
About 368?
And then 538 is the pretrial.
Yeah, pretrial.
538,
Pretrial.
okay. So actually,
But if you're talking about the past,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
inmate,
versus
the
the past, like,
population
yeah,
in the
yeah.
early 90s was 200 inmates, adjudicated inmates.
and
The
detainees,
local detainees was manned by the Guam Police Department at the Rosario detention.
Okay,
But then they transferred them to Department of Corrections.
okay.
That was in the early 90s.
And the facility hasn't grown much since then.
There was never a new facility built for local detainees,
Okay, so-
only the federal detainees.
So basically what you're saying, so the citations that caused the federal receiver at the time, okay, versus now, our house is the same place, hasn't grown an inch.
Well,
since
everything, the reason why the feds just went ahead and closed the case is because everything was resolved back then. Everything was working, okay? But also the government ensured the federal government that we were gonna go ahead and fix the fire sprinkler system and the electronic locking mechanism, okay? So we've been waiting for that. And it's supposed to be a grant, which we haven't used that yet. That was happening a long time ago.
So,
But now that Typhoon Mawar hit the island, it broke a lot of it damaged our buildings. That was a very strong typhoon. The generators were ruined, the lights, the perimeter lights, the structure, the windows, the AC units, everything was damaged, regardless of what they're saying, because DPW engineers were there as well, that went around and did a site inspection. Okay, they verified the damages there. FEMA inspectors, I went with them like 4 times, different inspectors, okay, and they were the ones that approved that project for $2 million, but now they're turning around and saying, no, it's not. So that's up to them. I'm not gonna tell them you're wrong, because you were with me when we did the inspection in Mangilao and Agonia, and now you're turning around and the FEMA inspectors or whatever recovery office is saying it's not justified. That's fine. I'm not gonna beg anyone to give the government DOC money.
okay, are they saying that these these supposedly damages were not due to Typhoon Mawar, that they pre-existed?
Sir, this is what they said in our meeting, that any mitigation, they want to harden our facilities.
Okay.
Even if it's, they want to help.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't even bring up, this is what's done. And they were informed that those were not working before the typhoon,
Sure.
some of it.
And those are documented.
Now they're saying they want records of maintenance and all this. I gave them a copy of the blotters. I gave them a copy of my operations report regarding VRS conducting maintenance for AC units and the generators. Now, if they don't want that, I did my best, I worked so hard with my report, my FEMA reports. I gave them a lot of photos. The FEMA inspectors asked me to send them photos, because they lost the photos or something. So I had to redo it and resend it, to them. So all my reports, I gave it to them. I gave them all the photos. We went to every location with those inspectors, and they even noted the GPS location of all the damages. So that's not an easy job to be doing an inspection with FEMA inspectors in Agana and in Manilao. I personally went with them with different inspectors from 2023 all the way to 2024. And so now they turn around and some of them are saying it's not justified. Fine. I'm not going to stress over these things.
How long ago was this that the FEMA inspectors went around that did some
They
of these-
did in
or did
August
this,
2023,
okay.
September.
No, the last one that said that they weren't going to cover this, or they weren't.
Oh, that's what recovery is saying, according to the director, that's what they're saying, that it's not justified or whatever.
Is there an appeal process that we can go through? Is there an appeal process?
Yeah,
Senator,
you
there
can.
is, yeah, Senator, where Doris, our program coordinator, she's not,
Yeah.
she's on leave right now.
Yeah,
But
okay.
she's coordinating because I'm asking her to get more specific
Well, no,
with.
Chief, the reason why I was asking, because
Yep.
I know you're down in Florida when they had this recent hurricane that had happened down there. FEMA was in a turmoil.
Yeah.
They were supposedly denying folks
Yeah.
who
Oh,
had
yeah.
Trump signs and things
Yeah.
of that nature.
Yeah, I
okay,
heard
and
about
it
that.
supposedly had gone,
Yeah.
beyond just the people that were walking the streets, but it was through their supervisors. So they're in a
Yeah.
a situation over there.
Yeah.
So this, what you're saying, is justified. Is a justified
Yes, sir. They
reason
even said they're gonna-
for an appeal.
They said they were going to help with, also give us a grant for disability, those with to help the disabled
Sure.
persons. But that didn't come out, so,
Okay.
And I believe, Senator, that Doris is going to follow up in terms of what I want to ask of FEMA on the specifics of the maintenance records they're asking for
Sure,
the
sure.
aircon and domes.
Yeah.
Another major area issue, since you brought the thing about the last receivership and some issues is, and what's changed a little bit,
Sure.
is that the medical and the healthcare system for the inmates, right, which is costly because, as I said, one inmate dialysis up to $2 million, right? But we have now GMH and behavioral a agreement. They were separate MOUs. Now we made a tri-agreement,
Yeah.
and the forward planning later on is to actually have on board. This will be for the budget purposes.
Yeah.
A healthcare administrator.
And the reason why I'm asking this, because I want to make sure that, again, Major Lozama, thank you very much. Again, I'm sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, and that you keep all your records in place, because during the appeal process with a situation like this, now should we have the situation where a federal takeover might happen again, okay, where we have one federal agency coming in to try to take over, okay, whereas another federal agency that vouched to fix the deficiencies that they see, but then has turned it down. So you have one federal government that's not communicating with each other. And so I would, again, and I'm sure you do this already, is that you keep your documentation, because this appeal. And,
Sir, I'm very good with records. I keep all my records.
That's great.
In one folder for FEMA, has its own folder.
And I think,
and it's in my
and
computer
I
as
think
well.
also FEMA is going to get a reshuffling, and I think you're going to probably be seeing a new FEMA come about, because of the situation that has come out about the situation down in Florida. So, because when I'm looking at this, when you're looking at again requests for nonviolent defendants to be released because overcrowding situation, living conditions, shortage of manpower, building deficiencies, lack of supplies, and you're saying that even toilet tissues or papinet gui. You don't even have papinet gui.
Yes, sir.
know?
I don't know what's going on, but we really need that. We really need that every week to be delivered to all the units.
We
the
need that here
18.
every day as well.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Even for the staff. But, if they don't have for the staff, then we're going to have to bring our own. But also, remember, the visitors are coming
Sure,
up, going up there.
sure.
They need it. So, yeah. So
Yeah, no, I mean,
So-
and so.
I don't know how much it costs for the government, how much is the one toilet tissue? I don't know how much is it, but
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying, so, yeah, again, when it comes down to that, the
Yeah.
basic
basic needs.
basic human needs, right? When
Yes,
it
sir.
comes down to that, right? If it comes down to that, it's really, that's why I'm saying, I mean, what citations do they have that caused that receivership versus now? Because I'm thinking in our self-analyses of what's happening now, it seems like we have
if you,
even more violations right now
No,
than,
sir.
than what we were cited for back
you're
then.
asking what's the difference? The difference is that the population is
Of course.
way
Of course.
triple what it was back then.
Of course. No, absolutely.
Because back then, we were able to manage
Sure,
the 200,
But
but
what I'm
now
say-
that it's
No,
950,
absolutely. But what I'm
wow.
saying, even with a smaller population, there was violations, of human rights violations. Right now, with a bigger population, there's an even bigger violation, and a lot of these also, again, more than half have not been adjudicated, but half are just detainees. But it doesn't matter. A violation is a violation of a human.
Also,
yeah. But
Sir,
again,
the other difference back then from now is that back then also those buildings were not exist. It did not exist. Like the federal detention, that wasn't up yet. Post 16 wasn't up. Post 5 was a new building. When I first worked there, that building just got built. So I know very well that 1991 consent decree, those buildings were not there yet. And even the domes were not there. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
In your either detainees or adjudicated folks up there, are you housing folks that probably should be housed in a medical or a psychiatric facility instead of maybe a DOC facility?
Well, right now we have the Post 7 Guam Behavioral Health Annex. That's where the courts remanded them to the Post 7 Annex. They don't want them at the hospital. So that's where they're at for the male facility. Then the women's facility, they have the Guam Behavioral clients as well going there.
So what is the difference? It's just a segregation? It's just segregated? I mean, what?
It's because they're remanded by the courts. They were sent by the courts to be housed there and not at the hospital. So it's really up to the courts.
So it's like the hospital annex, basically.
And Senator,
Yeah,
some of these individuals and clients, they have been reported by police, and police come over, they get evaluated, and then they have been remanded over to Department of Corrections, but they have a behavioral disorder, right? And also to include the individuals who are there for possession of Schedule 2,
okay.
substance abuse. In the DSM-4, Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, substance abuse is indicated in there too, right? Individuals with a crystal meth addiction. So a treatment facility like Lighthouse Recovery in Tijan has proven to be a successful program, especially if you have individuals sent there for 6 months, right? But on our island, we obviously don't have 3 or 4 Lighthouse Recovery substance abuse. We're using Department of Corrections as a substance abuse treatment, and that's not effective.
Sure. Let me ask this. So in your, I guess, quasi-hospital annex where the courts are setting them to that they would normally go to a hospital setting, okay, who mans that? Does DOC man that, or do you just guard that, but they're manned by behavioral health folks?
Our Department of Corrections, part of our MOU, we provide the security for them, and it's behavioral health that staff, the specialists there.
That staffs the folks that are they
the clients.
Are there folks 24/7 as well? There folks that
I believe, yeah, we have staff.
24/7?
Only at the Post 7.
Only at Post 7?
Yeah. But the women's facility, I believe it's only one of them for 8 hours. I'm not sure if they're getting someone for to watch the females 24/7. But the males facility, yes, it's 24/7. And to include the RSAT, the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program, that housing facility is also managed by the Guam Behavioral. We just provide security.
Provide security for that.
And right now, there's no prisoner that's there. It's not, they shut it down because there's no clients that meets the criteria to be in the RSAT program. They have to be incident-free for at least a year. And so they didn't qualify to be an RSAT candidate. So right now, there's no RSAT program right now.
Okay. Now, one last question. Because the amendment, it went from 5 million to 1 million, and that's why I'm glad you guys are down here, because for what is needed, for what you're saying, what is needed at this point, the 1 million won't cut it. It won't cut it.
It's not, sir, that's not enough if we're looking at other stuff such as fire safety, meaning like, for example, the emergency lights, the generators, the smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, all of those needs to be working, okay, if we're gonna ensure the safety of everyone. But for right now, we're just dealing with what we got, especially Typhoon Mawar hitting us, and the fire sprinkler system fell down at the domes, and the smoke detector doesn't work, emergency lights don't work, generators, that's all a part of fire safety.
So Major Lozama answered the question for me. So if it's higher than 1 million, we would be happy here at the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. And like I said, I'm glad you're down here, because I was saying, from what is needed and from what it's supposed to fund, it's not going to go a very long way.
Even, sir, the electronic locking mechanism, those doors still need to be fixed as well. It doesn't work, some of it, because it's old, but we're just dealing with what we got. It's like we just have to deal with what we got. And that's part of our job, is to make sure that we keep them inside the fence and make sure they don't run away, but we need help with all this, the generators, the AC units, making sure we have toiletry items and hygiene. So that's what we need.
So basically, in closing, but thank you very much. So basically, in closing, you are really saying, Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, sir. I'm not gonna say with the rose-colored glasses like what they say. We're not. We have to tell the truth, of what's really happening up there with the increase of the population. And we don't see the population's not even reducing right now.
Do you have the canines up there yet?
Right now, our canines, one of our, the two canines are with two of our canine officers. One already resigned and went over to Camp Blanc.
Okay.
So the plan is
we're
getting assistance.
I'm worried that if you get a canine, you won't be able to feed it.
Well, I mean, that's part of the
with the shortage that you have.
The food situation is costly with the population increase with the humans, but that includes the dogs now that just got added. They're hungry too.
If your basic needs are not there, I mean, you're going to give the priority, of course, to the human needs, the papidedgui over the Nagalagu, right? Yeah, so, yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate you folks coming here. And again, Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, colleagues. Senator Lujan. Senator Brown, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly thank you, Department of Corrections, for coming down. It sounds very chaotic up there, so I want to ask you, Mr. Director, what exactly are you doing to manage it, and what is the administration doing to provide assistance and support to DOC? Because coming down here and simply telling us every single problem under the sun you have, I'd like to know, what do you do to spend your day managing And what are you going to do to address it? And what if you don't have additional funding? What is the governor's office going to do to assist to provide you to address those needs? Because it sounds like a mess, quite frankly.
Thank you, Senator. You know, the staff, you know, are doing their best with the shortage of manpower individuals,
I'm sure
right?
your
And
staff, Mr. Director, is probably doing I want to know what you're doing. Because, I mean, excuse me,
yeah.
to come down and say, oh, we need this, we need that, this is how, what are you doing to address this? What is the administration doing to it?
You know,
That's why that entity exists. We're not just there to be on the Hill, but if everything's so chaotic and breaking down all over the place and in a crisis situation, why hasn't the governor declared an emergency? What resources have they put up to facilitate and assist?
I think, you know, it's been amplified even with the media interviewing. We're very transparent, you know, that to get this out in terms of our requests for, and again, thank you to Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas for introducing the bill, and hopefully
I'm not
to
talking about the
consider
money
this, right?
aspects of
Yeah.
it. I'm talking about the management aspect of it. What exactly are you and the administration doing to address these issues? What if there is no money available?
Well,
What are you doing to manage and address these operational concerns? Because, my goodness, you're not the only director in the government of Guam that has to facilitate. The only difference, you have people.
I think if it gets down to, you know, we've already shared with the governor, the lieutenant governor, with the senators here in the legislature, the situation we had. I think we've always let our cards on the table know that it's a dangerous place, the overcrowding and everything else. And if it comes down to a tipping point, I said this in the media in an interview, there's going to be a tipping point. One of our officers got injured and hurt over the 4-day weekend with the Thanksgiving. If it gets to that point, I hope it doesn't get to a point where more individuals get hurt, the violence happens before the leadership, and that's not just the governor's office, the leadership here in the legislature.
I'm asking you,
starts to give
Mr.
us the
Director,
support.
sorry. I mean, we're running in circles here. I mean, I'm a little dumbfounded. And if I was coming from nowhere and no experience and no understanding of operational management, then maybe I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I want to know what you're doing. What are you sitting around waiting for a tipping point, waiting for what are you doing, and what is the administration specifically doing to facilitate resources in this government that they have command over to help facilitate your issue?
Yeah.
What are you doing to address your generators? Are your generators being maintained? Are your generators being regularly tested?
We have great...
What are you doing as the director to help facilitate and manage what sounds very chaotic,
Senator,
quite frankly?
if I can, we have great support from our partners helping us out. When it comes down to security, Department of Agriculture has come over and helped us with perimeter security. We've had resources from the Office of the Attorney General who gave us some canine dogs from the opiate program, right? The Attorney General, when he came and paid a visit with us, he's offering some particular strategies. One strategy he offered, besides getting butler facilities and tents, is he's also indicated that there may be a look at a transition house. And he almost said for a pretrial, right? But he's looking at the list, and he said, and he committed, he'll consider those 130 pretrial inmates. That's a step a little bit. I've met with the Chief Justice, Senator. Chief Justice Bob Torres has indicated he understands the situation we're facing with the overcrowding. He's actually committed to looking at, and he meets with the governor to look at the situation we have at the Department of Corrections. I always assure the staff and the employees, we're doing our best to get resources from you. DOA came really quick and responded when the governor said, if you're having a problem with shortage of your personnel, we'll get a DOA announcement out. A lot of people are aware that we have openings for Department of Corrections. We're facing a battle, and I've been in recruiting before, Senator. People don't want to work, individuals will not work at Department of Corrections and risk their lives in an overcrowded situation. They think it's not worth it. And a lot of the attention really has been given to the Guam Police Department and a lot of other, you know, as I said, Department of Corrections has been placed in the back burner. But I've done my best to put it up front every single time I can, to talk with business leaders, government officials, the governor too, and the legislature. I think I've always been upfront from the beginning I came here to say, this is the challenges we have. In our website, we have our strategic plan, 2023, 2026. The staff, not everything had been accomplished. We got a reserve program off the ground. We have now a K-9 unit, but we really need to do more. And this is a step with this particular legislation.
And what did the administration request in your budget for this? We're only 3 months into the fiscal year.
40, again, I had indicated previously, we were budgeted for FY25 at $45 million, but a lot of that is personnel cost too. And a lot of it also goes to a lot of the medical bills. A lot of the capital outlay has gone to some things that we put in for washing machines and from some air cons for post 8. But the biggest challenge, and I've always said it from the beginning, are those domes. Those domes that are considered the outflow of pretrial detainees, Senator, are the most dangerous thing. I've worked in correctional facilities in the military in California, Quantico, and Joint Forces. You don't have, that dome is almost like the border in South Texas, right? For the illegal immigrants coming through. It's not really meant to be, when the U.S. Customs gave that to Department of Corrections and signed it and here, Governor Guam take over it, I think that was one of the worst decisions to do, because you need more permanent facilities there, right? And that's going to cost money. That's why part of the modernization, I estimate it's $180 million for a new prison, but we're not even at that stage yet. We can't even afford the $16 million that the architecture design bidders are indicating would start the process. We can't even come up with that.
So we're going to be back in the same cycle, be it a few months from now, a year from now. We're going to be back and hearing the same old story. Maybe different director, different warden, different players, same old story. Because ultimately what you do need is a new facility. I mean, if the administration can put money in all kinds of other things, why aren't they investing in you, where you have human individuals there that need to have a decent, safe place to include not just the inmates, obviously. We have to ensure that their rights are protected, but more importantly, your staff, and to address the challenge. And the only thing I'm doing right now, Mr. Director, is regurgitating exactly what you've told us, what your predecessors have told us, as to why they need a new facility. Because of the challenges getting individuals that want to work at DOC and want to be corrections officers, and facilities that are more modern, that would be safer for everybody involved, the inmates and Department of Correction. I mean, we've had money falling out of the sky. But now we're saying we're going to take whatever money we have towards doing the design for the facility, and we want it for day-to-day operations because we don't have toilet paper. And yet, I don't see how this is going to help facilitate. It's maybe last you for how long, and then where are you going to be?
Well, the immediate, and I think I place emphasis on the urgency of this money that's needed has to go to a lot of the security systems, the situation, the domes. If you look at the picture of those domes, you see 85 people in an open bay. That's a danger to the officer there. I'm surprised no one has gotten killed or injured. I'm surprised 85 of those inmates haven't ran out of that dome because there's no barrier there except the other layer of outside perimeter fence right there. So this money that on this legislation is going to be immediate fix to that we put that in, and to include the generators and stuff like that. With the new facility planning, I'm sorry to say, and I'm going to be realistic, Simon Sanchez and the hospital has been put as priority over the Department of Corrections. That those big government structures, to include GDOA and the schools and the situation they're in, have been taken as priority. And I'm not going to say it's right, because I'm just part of that. We're part of the community of government agencies that have also amplified our needs for not only a new facility, but the work on what we have right now existing that is antiquated. That is an antiquated facility that we need to fix, the security systems.
And so what has the administration, goodness, Simon Sanchez, please, let's not even go there. I think the children haven't yet been born that may one day graduate from the future Simon Sanchez. I mean, some administrations have done 6 schools and an administration.
Yeah.
And we're not overwhelmed with the construction that's happening now because we hardly see any.
Yeah.
But what is the administration's proposal to address the challenges you have? Because like I said, all this money, oh my goodness.
Again, as I said in the meeting when they indicated the proposal for the pretrial proposed reduction, and for
I've been asking them to close it. Yes, I can't see. It's blinding me.
And also,
you know,
ma'am,
for the pretrial reduction proposal, right? And the meeting with the Attorney General, and for the proposed
It's that one actually, but it's okay.
bill that Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas indicated. The senators vote on whether to give 1 million, 2 million, not the full 5 million or whatever. I'm sure that the governor's going to support, because she understands the immediate needs that we need to do to fix what I've just described in this whole thing, from generator, power that we need, security systems, camera, and the women's facility and the Hagana detention facility.
But what is the plan beyond this? Because, you know, we were here not too long ago, Department of Corrections telling us how critical the absolute need is to begin a new facility. I was even pleasantly surprised with the fact that DOC was willing to facilitate a design where you could accommodate the construction in phases so you can still operate on the same property and yet be able to facilitate the construction of a new building, transfer those, even you had the schedule all out.
Yep.
So are you telling me now you guys are totally abandoning that?
What we're looking at now, when it comes down to a new facility, part of the discussions I believe that needs to be addressed is what's the situation with the judiciary and their planning for their new multi-court complex that they're going to construct. As I finished saying, in my opinion, a detention facility for a pretrial detainee should be within a vicinity next to wherever the court plans to do their construction. But the Manila facility, the facilities in Manila was meant, and I believe, and I'm going to stand by this, people may disagree, it was meant for the prisoners, for inmates who have already been sentenced and convicted. You don't put pretrial detainees in the same area as convicted prisoners who are trying to do their rehabilitation. That's not a good chemistry, Senator, and those that are pushing that to say it's okay to have pretrial and they authorize the overflow and let's leave it at that, are going to condition our community to make it acceptable. And to me, until we change that mindset and say, no, when the courts build their multi-court complex, have the detention, whatever pretrial be, like I said, not even less than a walking distance, and the next senators in the next legislature, hopefully they can work with the judiciary on that and take a look at it.
I'm not arguing your point. I'm asking about the Department of Corrections facility that not too long ago presented their plans and the incredible need. And, you know, I hear the plea today. I heard the plea for why you need a new building. So I want to know, what is you're Fred, you're representing your administration. What plans do they have, knowing the crisis situation out there? What plans do they have to prioritize addressing that? And more importantly, what are the plans for a new facility or the phases that you presented to us that will address a lot of the very concerns that you're seeing now, your predecessors have been saying, and probably those after you are going to continue to say,
I think
because of the lack of proper design of that facility to be functional for the needs you have and the challenges you have with personnel.
Senator,
Where's the bigger vision
I think
here?
one of the things that's in discussion that I'm sure is gonna be a big factor now is working with the new Trump administration and finding out what are their assistance with the military buildup, with the Marines now coming in, because it's going to be a higher population. And I talked about with some senators,
Give me a cigarette.
what sort of particular resources are the federal government going to do, working with our Governor Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio and the legislature to see what could be done. Because it's been done in other jurisdictions. Already other states are asking the federal government, but we're in a real good situation because the military buildup is going on here. I'm sure there are senators here that are having plans to communicate with the federal government, says, what are you doing with the situation? Because there might even be military personnel who might have to be incarcerated at our area.
You know, I'm a little amused because, you know, the administration, which we are not, already has the ability to do that. The federal government has already extended its hand to say, hey, well, you need to let us know what you need on what potential impacts are going to happen with this military buildup, and look at the anticipated growth of the, you know, we're not talking 5,000 or 6,000 Marines anymore. They're talking substantial numbers in the next 10 years. You already have the mechanism to do that. They're saying we're not hearing it. We're not getting those requests. Because, you know, we talk to the federal people too. And they're saying those requests for these type of things aren't coming through, and they're asking why, but we can't do it.
Yeah.
Sir Frank Blas and I can't do it.
When, in our meeting with the Attorney General, when he was going through, he had indicated too he was going to be communicating with some of the federal officials. And one of the things too, of course,
Fred, Mr. Director, there is no, you just need to put it in writing and submit it. I mean, you've got your federal office here that facilitates those things. And we're saying, the federal entity is saying, we're not hearing from you, Guam. There's already a mechanism. Maybe check with your administration and the people that are working on it, why the Finno-English is not being put on paper and submitted so that they can review it. They want to provide that assistance.
Senator, we have a good relationship with Congressman Jim Moylan, who was a former parole officer who actually came up to the facility.
Mr. Director, I'm telling you, this has nothing to do with the congressmen or the senators or the whatever. The mechanism is already there. Maybe check with your office that is in charge now of your federal grants and is your key liaison with the federal government. Because their officials are already here on Guam telling us that the administration is not asking for these things, that they're saying, we would love to assist you, Guam, but we need the administration to put it in writing and submit it so we can help facilitate the money that they want to give to our people to offset the adverse impact of the military buildup. It already exists, so I recommend you do that. So again, I'm going to ask, because time is running out, are you abandoning the idea of a new building? Because you've only got 24 months left. What is the administration's plan to address them? Because a lot of the things you're bringing up, the security concerns, the structural integrity of these buildings, all these key concerns you're bringing up can be addressed with a new modernized facility. You have come and presented that to us. What are you doing with that plan? Because you're going to continue to sink more money into what is already a sinking ship. So I'm saying, you know, get that life raft and at least get one section of this done. And I want to know what resources are being brought to the table to help facilitate and address that very issue, because you continue where you're going. We're going to be here. I'm not going to be here, but others will be here in the next few months dealing with the next crisis and the next same presentation. Where's the bigger vision?
Our strategic plan, 2023-2026, if you read it, you see that one of the goals and visions, of course, is to have a new modernized prison. So that's not off the table. That's still continuing. But what we're currently dealing with this piece of legislation here, which I want the support of senators to include you, is to get these funds that we can use in this urgent situation that we need to take care of security, systems, the infrastructure, the generators. We're having load shedding. The quicker we can get this money, the more I have a better sleep at night, that we can take care of some of these things, and the staff, I feel, could be a little bit more safer. And then with the planning of the big major project of the new prison, that's not off the table. It's a goal that we want. I'm going to still work with DPW and the Committee on the Modernization Act. It's still in law to work with that committee with Gita and seeing what we can do to, as I said, that the goal on that one is hopefully by 2025, at the latter part of 2025, there can be some movement on that. The biggest hurdle we came through is the $16 million here for the architecture design.
Well, is that what, is that the figure you received as a result of bidding out this project for your architectural design?
There could be possibly changes, even though the figure here is about $16 million on the draft of this architectural design from the bidders. There could be some changes on that design. Remember, I think I said it publicly in here that they're not going to purchase any properties, outside the fence. That changed. Plus, we're not going to spend money on a parking lot, and have a parking lot. That's not priority. Priority is to have that area where the domes are at. constructed permanent facilities there. And I believe it could be something in the area of a 300 to 400 capacity. But I certainly don't want pretrial inmates to occupy that. I want sentenced prisoners, the ones who are adjudicated.
You know, as I mentioned earlier before you came, I have no argument about what the needs are. My concern is the funding source, because once you start eroding into this, you're eating away at the possibility in the near-term future, certainly in what remaining time of this administration, to actually get the construction of a new building off the ground.
I think $2 million will be okay, for us. If you
Again,
don't wanna
I'm
give us
just
the
saying
$5
the
million.
source of the funding is eroding the possibility of a new facility being, at least a portion of that new facility being constructed. I wanted to ask another question with the time remaining. I understand Judge Talentino is requiring drug testing of those that are coming out for change of pleas before the court. Drug testing. And what are the results of that? What are you finding? Are you guys following through with ensuring that these individuals are drug tested? And if so, what are the results of those drug tests?
You're talking about the inmates?
Yes.
Yes. Right now, if there are any incidents of an inmate testing positive, right now we call the Guam Police Department because of the new law. It's sound any use of drugs or being under the influence, as it says in that new law, it's being sent to the Office of the Attorney General, and they coordinate it with the Guam Police
And do you
Department.
have any results of inmates that have been tested or are tested that are come up positive for drugs?
We've actually had an incident in Hagana Detention. One, I believe, tested positive crystal meth. And then there's another one that tested that I believe the officer indicated he was showing signs of being under the influence of alcohol. They confiscated alcohol hand sanitizer. And then, of course, we put out a memo quickly, a directive that no alcohol sanitizers will be given to the inmates, and they're making their own, using their chemistry to use that as alcohol. But it's still an offense. We sent it to the Office of the Attorney General on that.
I want to relay, it's the funding source that concerns me, because if we agree to do this, we are eroding the possibility in the next few years, more than likely, unless another funding source comes or the future legislature can come up and prioritize funding of beginning the construction of a new facility, at least the portion or the phases that we discussed, because if you don't reach to do that, this scenario that we're seeing today is going to repeat itself. It has many times. It will continue to do so. It's going to be what you call a Band-Aid fix that I don't think is going to last. So I simply want to state that for the record. And we'll talk in 24 months if we're here, and let's see what happens. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to ask these questions.
Senator Brown. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the panel. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm hearing this, this definitely is an emergency situation going on at DOC. Yeah, again, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues that, it should really be all hands on deck at DOC. And so looking at what happened with Department of Education, there is a liaison at the governor's office. Does the DOC have a liaison at the governor's office to ensure there's a follow-through with everything that you've all the information that you brought with us today? There's definitely follow-throughs that can be done to make sure that, you're ticking off all of these things. Do you have a liaison at the governor's office?
No, we don't have a liaison there, but I mostly work with the Senior Policy Advisor, Ricky Orsini, and, of course, the Governor's Chief of Staff when it comes down to the situation that we have with this bill, because the priorities that I just indicated, I shared with the Chief of Staff who tasked me to work, and I'm working with DPW so that we can get into a scope of work if this money is released to us, if it's, if the legislation passes.
Okay, and so is there a timeline? So one thing to make sure that these things get done, is there a timeline for this that's been put out?
Well, it's because these are priorities, and they're once the bill goes before the governors and it's signed, we of course want to do that. We want to start getting some of this stuff down, and I'm already completing some of the scope of work description for DPW. I had a meeting with Vince Ariola yesterday, And as long as they have that, they can put everything together, especially when it comes down to the assessment of what GPA says, which I sent that letter out yesterday for the electrical assessment of our facilities. And then, of course, we want to try and get some of these areas that have been identified here, at least before the end of FY25, before the end of 2025, they get all these areas that have been identified and the priorities taken care of.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, that you need help, because you're overseeing the operations of DOC. I think there's an additional person that's needed to really kind of spearhead this at the governor's office. I know, Ricky Orsini does a great job, but she has to deal with a lot of things coming through. So be ideal to have a designated person to really push this. The ARPA funds are going to expire, I believe, at the end of this month. Is there any opportunity to reprogram some of that funding, to purchase all these things, toilet paper, generators, air conditions?
What we've heard is that ARPA funds that have already expired have already been reallocated to the hospital, I believe, or something, that project.
Okay, and then the...
let me just also add on that,
So we have prepared requisitions using all our ARPA funds. Right now, we're just working closely with GSA to have it appropriated correctly because of the system not accepting the old fiscal year budget. But we have prepared the AOEs to use ARPA funds. And it's for basically the inmates' basic needs. We also requested for desktop computers, washer and dryer as well.
Okay, yeah, I guess the question is, obviously you need more money.
Yes.
The $5 million is not going to cut it to build a new prison, which is what you desperately need. It's, that's, I guess, the purpose of this bill is to reprogram that money to help you meet your day-to-day needs. And it seems like that's really critical. But yeah, I just, in listening to all that you're presented today, it should be, I feel like there's a mismatch in what is being accomplished and what the needs are. And so it's really about, what is missing that can really catalyze change that needs to happen. Because I was there when we passed the bill to modernize Department of Corrections, and I was looking forward to, an RFP to build it. I mean, I remember Mr. Borja was here to discuss about, he had a lot of excitement about a new prison, and it seemed like it was within reach, but then there seems to be some sort of stagnation.
And Senator, with some of these things that we're repairing and going to use this money for, and these urgent needs to fix, and these things that have been damaged that are priority, that could be in the project of FEMA, if we use this, there's the possibility, I'm checking our doors to see whether we can be reimbursed with the money that we use from this by FEMA.
Yeah, understood, but we don't know when that day is going to come, right? That seems like, yeah, I don't know. Have you heard anything from FEMA as far as getting reimbursement? Yeah.
I believe from their position, from what Doris Kichichu, our program officer, said, first the funds have to be expended first. And none of it has been expended on those FEMA projects yet. None of them.
Okay, and what's the holdup with that?
Well, they're going through, again, I said, as we discussed earlier, they're going through some of the issues FEMA has in terms of requesting what kind of maintenance logs we had on our air conditioning system at the domes and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so again, I think that something's missing that needs to be added to your I guess your capacity, which I believe a liaison would definitely help Obviously, that liaison can also assist with grants. I know there isn't any grant that would help build a prison. I was told there's not many grants out there to build a prison, but perhaps there's an approach that can be taken that can facilitate the build of a prison, so that it supplements any kind of general funding that we have. Yeah, I mean, I see the need for the bill. I just trying to figure out. I'm trying to troubleshoot with you guys. How can we move forward with this? It's.
I just want to add, and I've been reminded that we have a program director, Sarah Netaduk, who's joined our staffing, and she also helps coordinate some of the behavioral and our casework with inmate support programs and our training. But she's a person who can easily be communicating with the front office too when it comes down to the planning to spend some of this, especially when it involves the security needs, and also it addresses the needs of the inmates when it comes down to resources they need, from air conditioning to the laundry, the washing machines, and other stuff that probably mitigate some of the complaints that inmates have in the living conditions they're at with overcrowding.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of talk going on. I just want to see the action and change. And so what is it going to take to get there? That's I guess, a rhetorical question also, but something that I think that's really critical at this time. But as far as this bill, I think it's important. And yeah, I don't have any other questions. Just, yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, in response to your, what you're telling us, you don't see anything. What I do see is that AG Douglas Moreland did mention that he's going to be speaking with the Admiral regarding building a Butlerton facility, right, in Manila for 800-bed unit. So we'll see when that happens. But right now, he wants to address all the short-term goal, not the long-term goal. Short-term goal is just to build the facility and have the military assist us with it. So I don't know when is he having these discussions. He didn't tell us, but he said he's going to get with the Admiral to try and see how he can help us build a strong facility for 800 beds. Right, sir? 800 beds, but that's what he's going to do to help us. But this is what he wants us to do, is work on the short-term goal or the current situation. At least work with that, because it is a crisis, it's an emergency. And then from there, later on, the long-term goal will be the modern prison, the state-of-the-art prison. But that one is very costly. I don't know where the funding will come from, but eventually we'll get there. Like what the director said, they'll be discussing that. Amen.
Thank you for that information. I hope it works out. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have no other questions at this time.
Senator Spasi, Senator Paris. Minority Leader Blas, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Director, Major, ma'am. Thank you for being here. I was the one that had asked for you all to come down, okay? And I want to thank you for being here. Major, thank you very much, okay, for the information. I just need to share, though, and I need to ask. Of the projects that you want, or the money, the reasons why you need this money, how much this is tied to ongoing FEMA projects or projected FEMA projects that you're having?
The dome areas, when the FEMA went in and inspected the domes?
Well, let's put this, let me make it very simple. How many project worksheets do you have for DOC from Malware?
From Malware?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be like 25 projects, but then it's decreased because of the They want records of the maintenance of the AC units and the generators.
Okay, so how many projects do you have?
Pardon? The projects now?
Like what Major said, it was accurate about that, but Doris Kichicho has more of that information but she's on leave right now. And she'll provide more of an accurate status on the number of FEMA projects, and then some where it's questionable because they're asking about maintenance records of air cons that were over there.
And I can tell you why they're asking for the maintenance records of air cons, because I am sure that there was a previous disaster that you guys received funding to make some of those repairs, and as a result of those repairs or replacements, there were these things that need to be put in place, insurance, maintenance logs, and whatnot. And if you didn't have it, FEMA wasn't going to come back in and do something about it, and it's going to cost you. That said, though, and while the individual is on leave, in your guesstimate, how much do you need for your FEMA projects?
Probably it's going to be, the estimate here is about $2 million.
$2 million?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that include the toilet tissue, the toilet paper that we're?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Does that include the,
Equipment?
some of the equipment that you want to be able to replace or to maintain?
No.
No. What I'm getting at is, well, I see you probably need, some money. How much that money is hasn't been determined as to what we're going to be able to provide. It appears that a lot of this stuff, the money is going to be is needed for stuff that should have already been accounted for in your budget.
Well, as I indicated before, on our FY25 budget, we only had $150,000 for capital outlay. But the rest is
How much did
personnel
you
and
ask for?
medical.
How much did you ask for in capital outlay? Never mind, not what the administration told you to ask for. How much did you ask for?
For FY25?
Yeah.
I believe that was the total amount, right? 125? The request was 150,000 on our capital outlay.
Okay, so a lot of this stuff now then, if you only request $150,000, then you own this problem. Because you should have anticipated this. You should have anticipated this. You should have anticipated that you were going to need money to be able to conduct maintenance, repair, and some of the repairs, some of the replacement of the parts. So it's on you. And I have to go back to, the line of questioning from Senator Brown. She and I have been in discussions with people that have asking, what does Guam need? And never in our discussions did we ever hear anything that is necessary that Guam says they need for DOC. When we're talking about the military buildup. It's on you again. Okay? Now, the way this is written here, it's for the renovation, maintenance, and repairs of DOC, ACF, and HDF, procurement of security system materials, property, vehicles and equipment for ACF, HDF. There's nothing here about supplies. Was you the one who asked for the property to be included?
Well, the procurement, when it comes down to are you talking about the supplies, like you're saying, hygiene products and?
So, I think you can read this. It says procurement of security system materials, property, comma, property. Vehicles and equipment for ACF and HDF.
Yeah, you want more specific on what the property that we're intending and the kind of...
You want this money to be able to buy property too?
No, not land property.
Oh, so we
or
can
anything
strike
like
that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather put supplies as opposed to property, based on the presentation by you folks. Fred, what I'm getting at is we have to be practical about the whole thing here, okay? I know there's a need.
Yeah.
Okay? Obviously, there's a need. You wouldn't be down here. And obviously, this is an exercise that had you been properly provided the information. Your chair had told us, okay, numerous times, not just your agency, but the other agencies involved, what are your needs? What do you need? Unfortunately, it has been the practice that you say, this is all we're going to need, and then 3 months later, it doesn't come as a surprise to us. 3-4 months later, you guys come back in here and says we need more money. And then we ask the question, well, why didn't you ask for this 3 or 4 months ago? Because you see the listing, all the stuff that you provided to me with regards to what your material and what your needs are, this didn't happen just overnight. This looks like a compilation of stuff that has happened for over the last couple of years. But yet this was the first time we've seen this.
Yeah.
Okay? So now you see where our consternation is at as to why we want to be able to do this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I was just joking with my partner, my colleague here. Says, unfortunately, what this conversation, what could happen with this conversation, the irony of this thing? I can change out DOC with GMH and the conversation will be the same. I can change out DOC with another government entity, okay, and it'll be the same. We can change out, take your letters here, and scratch out DOC and put another agency, it's going to remain the same. What I'm getting at is, it stumps me. When you've got an administration who says we've collected the most money, we're the most profitable, we can take care of all of our bills with all the money that we're getting in, okay? We shouldn't have to worry about it. And then 3 or 4 months later, we have these agencies coming in and says, we're short. I'm going to suggest that maybe next year in the discussions, before we bring in the directors, we're going to bring in the employees to tell us what we need in these entities. Again, thank you for the candor, thank you for the honesty. But even at that, the role that we have here as legislators, there's only so much that we can do. After we give you the resources that you ask for, okay, how it's done is up to you guys, not us. We practically give you a blank check to run your operations. On this, in the past, okay, when you got your budget, your budget was categorized, was budgetized by categories. Okay? You had so much for operations, you had so much for personnel, you had so much for this. That doesn't exist anymore to give you the leeway to do this. It just bothers me that this comes back to us and says, oh, we're short on money, and then you ultimately try to put the blame on us for not giving you the money. Okay? That's the fear, that's what irks me about this.
So does that mean, Senator, that you're going to give us the full $5 million?
No, I'm thinking, that's not what I'm saying. You know,
Because
if
it's
that was the
available.
case, Fred,
it's
why
just-
didn't you ask me for the full? Why didn't you ask me for the full $5 million?
It's restricted right now.
Well,
We can't use it
Why didn't you ask me
until the
for
new
the full
facility,
$5
but
million
now this
during
opens
the
up,
budget
right?
discussions? Oh, by the way, in Public Law 3657, which was established, okay, how much money do you have in that account right now?
She can look at what balance we have.
Yeah. How much?
Which account? Are you-
Your Department of Corrections Facilities Maintenance Reservation and Modernization Act.
Oh, just $5 million.
When this law was passed in 2021, wasn't there a $5 million
Supposed to be,
appropriation
it's
provided?
supposed to be appropriate every, I believe, annually, but when I came here in 2023, in August, they said, all we have is $5 million. As I said earlier, we didn't have anything more than $5 million in the account.
Didn't you bother to question and ask why you didn't have more than that? Didn't you bother to question your bosses as to why you didn't have more than that?
No,
Hi. What was that? You know, Mr. Chair, I think I made my point here, okay? And thank you very much.
Cedros Masi, Senator Blas. Senator Duenas, you're recognized.
Cesar Masi, Mr. Chair, and to the panel, thank you for being here. Well, I guess we were asked to put it on the record, and it's on the record. I want to address this issue first and foremost, and I guess I'll go to Ms. Okada first. And I realize that you're new, because I want to clear this up in terms of the annual appropriation. I believe the reason, Fred, for your $5 million balance is because this is not a savings account. It doesn't accumulate. It's an appropriation every year in the event that you're able to go to market with a approved, stamped plan for construction and put out for solicitation. This is your debt service capability. Is that how you understand it, Ms. Okada?
Yes.
Okay. So what we have on the record now, and what's very clear is you have a bunch of projects that have to get done. You have a perfect storm of deferred maintenance. You have a perfect storm of Typhoon Mawar. You have a perfect storm of 950 inmates and counting. And if you don't get on this post haste, it's on the record now that we will have the perfect storm of the feds breathing down our neck. Thank you, Ms. Lizama, for being here and being the person who's on the record as having worked with DOJ on these issues. Because I want to sit here like I did with Mr. Borja and everybody else when we passed the bill several years ago to provide the debt service and the beautiful plans that you have going forward. I love every single one of them. I love that there's 4 phases. I love that you could get to the point to where you could house 2,000 inmates with electronic locks and a control room, and probably with half of the staff that you have right now. I love all of that. But that's not going to buy us a can of Spam at Payless right now. So, Fred, I do want to also put on the record, because I think you should have taken up the chairman when he said, request the $5 million. Because here we are. Yes, budget, I don't have a problem with that. We're going to let everybody ask for what budget they're going to get. But when you're budgeting for capital improvement and stuff that's deferred maintenance, stuff that is because of a typhoon, and stuff that is because you did not anticipate a tripling of your population in the last 3 years, then you have to get a chunk of cash. That's not necessarily associated with a budget. So, Fred, I need you to just be straightforward here now with your ASO and with Ms. Lizama. You absolutely need this $5 million in order to get on these capital projects post-haste. I want you to tell me that.
I'm going to be straight with you. We need this $5 million.
Okay.
The full $5 million.
Now, whether the governor wants to use transfer authority, whatever the governor wants to do, I want another thing that's on the record so we're clear when we vote on this, and whatever bill comes out. But the fact is that this is an appropriation that is for a debt service capability if you're ready to go to market. But other than that, it's not new money. It's what was appropriated for the purposes of DOC going forward to begin with. Please put that on the record.
In terms of this $5 million originally earmarked for the modernization and the new prison, yes, that was originally appropriate for, on the record.
Now, I'm happy we're here on the record, but one of the reasons why I wanted to move along on this is simply because of the fact that normally we come down in the Committee of the Whole to talk about new money, money that's being appropriated. This money's appropriated. It's available. It's in the budget. It's within the ceiling. So I wanted to put this on the record that I'm hoping to be able to vote on a $5 million appropriation because the money's there, and we can argue later whether or not transfer authority could have covered this, whether or not ARP could have covered this. But Fred, you were told down in the front office straight away, if you don't get this lifted, you can't use this money. Put that on the record, please.
Looking at the review of it prior to Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas changing some of the language here, it was only restricted to be used for the modernization of the prison. I couldn't use it for what we planned. And that's on the record, Senator. Yeah.
Now, subsequent to this bill being heard and whatever happens to it, I don't mind having oversight after oversight, roundtable, sitting here and talking to you about how you're going to do whatever you're going to do going forward. But everything that I've seen that you put before us today is an absolute emergency as far as I'm concerned. And it will be derelict for this legislature to not give you that authorization. And if we want to deal with the governor, that's a different story. But you're asking for this $5 million. The senators put together this bill for this $5 million. And I certainly hope to God we'll be able to vote to let you have the authority to use this $5 million going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Duenas. Colleagues, we're going to recess at this time until 9:30 tomorrow morning. And we'll resume the remainder of the first round and second round if needed. So ask again that you please be present and prompt. And thank you very much for maintaining a quorum today. And I'll see you tomorrow at 9:30.